to this topic. Josh, can you walk us through some of the platform strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think we'll kind of start with the weaknesses part of this first, right? So everybody kind of knows what they're getting into. And I would say overall, I've been mostly surprised around how small a lot of the weaknesses of the platform is. Brian was mentioning how powerful it can be, and I'll get into that as we get into the strengths. But along with that comes some small weaknesses. So the first thing is really that Teams has been more designed for what I would consider probably mostly a younger audience, right? So we're all probably used to going into work. We've got a file share, something like that. We know exactly what the file structure looks like, where things are located. And Teams tries to simplify this in a slightly different way, in that the search bar has become more of a universal search, right? So everything lives there. You can get around through Teams through there. You don't have to click through a bunch of different teams or channels. You can get everywhere you need to go from there. You can search conversations. You can search all of your documents that have been shared. And this is more of, made for everybody having like cell phones today, where everything is just a quick search away. Even you see it with Windows 10, right? The whole old style start menu is gone, and now you really just hit start and you type in what you're looking for, whatever that is, whether it's settings or whatever else comes up. And this is exactly what we're seeing with the Teams platform. So that shift into that mindset tends to make adoption slightly slower for your staff members. But once they get there, you start to realize how powerful that can be and how easy it is to just go into your search bar and get whatever piece of information you need. The second kind of thing around that is really just the amount of upfront work you need to be conscious of as you're starting a Teams deployment. If you don't really put in some time up front, you end up experiencing things like Teams sprawl, and that gets hard to kind of come back from if you're not thinking about it up front. Outside of that, it's really just the pace at which Microsoft is moving, which is kind of a good and a bad at the same time. New feature rollouts are coming every month. It almost feels like a weekly basis that we're seeing big new features. And because of that pace, sometimes smaller things don't necessarily see the light of day as quickly as they should. They just did a pretty big overhaul of the calendar functionality, but there's still some really small things that are missing from that. Example, most of us are probably used to working with like Microsoft Outlook. You're able to go in there, do side-by-side comparisons of calendars, right? That's not a feature that's really in Teams yet, along with like some of the color categories of your different events. So just small things like that, end up not being there because Microsoft is trying to roll out a lot of the bigger stuff, especially with everybody moving into remote work. So I think there's a couple people who get frustrated at the lack of some smaller features, but if you really look at it, we're getting just huge strides pretty constantly and consistently, adding some of the bigger things that we're all looking for. From more of the positive side of where Microsoft Teams strengths are, I mentioned earlier, right, that a lot of people start using Teams as just a replacement for Skype. But it is so much more. You can definitely tell that when Microsoft started designing Teams, collaboration was in the forefront of their mind. The collaboration and document sharing that Teams has is absolutely best in class. It makes it so easy. It eliminates things like back and forth emails. You have a Word doc, everybody wants to work on it. You're emailing it back and forth. Who's made what changes? Is this the latest version? All of that is gone. You can put it in a centralized place with a focused group of conversation around it, and everybody can work on it and update it at the same time. This is also something that we at Dalechek are using externally with clients as well. If we put together like technology action plans or things, we can share that out and we can have a really collaborative experience with our clients. Outside of that, I would say that, Brian and Scott, you both mentioned how Teams can be more of a hub. And that is 100% true. I think we have a nice graphic up there of a bunch of remotes, and right now your day is consistent of going through Outlook, going, Salesforce, a whole bunch of different apps. And really, Teams has become more of this universal remote control where everything can be inside of there. Brian was mentioning how you guys have integrated Cisco WebEx into Teams so that even though you're using this other app, it doesn't seem that way to you. You're living your day-to-day inside of Teams. And that's exactly what Microsoft is going for. They want your entire job to end up being inside of Teams, where this is your go-to place to do anything. You see that through all of the integrations that they have out there and all the applications. I mean, even today, you can go in there and in 5 minutes have Salesforce set up inside of Teams. I mean, that's huge and absolutely shows what they're looking to do and where they're looking to take Microsoft Teams. The other part of that is just how powerful it really can be. We at Dalechek actually use it to automate a ton of our processes. Through the integration of Power Automate and the new approvals app that just came out, we've been able to automate really simple things like submitting hardware purchase requests, but even really complex things like onboarding all of our new employees and going through all of their training and their first essentially week on the job. All of that has been automated inside of Teams to make that experience consistent and easy for our onboarding employees. So, when you look at kind of those things together, it really is back to the point of Microsoft trying to put everybody into Teams and giving you this tool where it doesn't matter where you're at, what device you're on, you can pull all these things up just from your cell phone. It's really making it sticky for you to be able to do your job from this single pane of glass.
We've had a number of questions come in as Josh was going through the strengths and weaknesses. One that I want to circle back to is, can you link Zoom meetings as well? And Brian, what are your thoughts on linking to Zoom meetings?
Yeah, Zoom does have a few options for integrating with Teams. One is from a starting meetings perspective. You can start Zoom meetings from Microsoft Teams through a bot that Zoom has available. Also, you can join Microsoft Teams meetings from Zoom Rooms if you happen to adopt Zoom Rooms. Although that doesn't quite work in the other direction just yet. That's something that is on the roadmap. But yes, the answer to that question is Zoom does have the ability to kick off meetings, or you can start ad hoc meetings from within a Microsoft Teams channel.
Excellent. Another question that we got is, can you explain how Teams and SharePoint work together? Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of funny because a lot of the back end of Teams is existing Microsoft products. As an example, the chat functionality actually works through Exchange messaging, and a majority of the actual collaboration space is SharePoint on the back end. So when you're working in Teams, right, everybody sees this nice, single pane of glass, and that's where you're working. But if you're, one of the IT admins, you can actually interact with all of this on the back end through SharePoint, right? Every team that you create and channel is just creating site collections out in SharePoint. You can also mount things directly inside of Teams that are existing SharePoint collections as well. So you really do kind of get a best of both worlds where your users are seeing single pane, but you still have all the power of the SharePoint platform on the back end.